Well, good morning, church, and happy Tuesday. Hey, I just want to shout out this past weekend. It was an incredible time being back with many of you inside of our church building, worshiping in whatever way you saw fit, opening up God's Word, learning and growing in wisdom and knowledge of Him. If you were part of our virtual congregation this past Sunday on our live stream, thanks for tuning in. I want to encourage you, though, if you're able to, join us in person. We still have open registration slots for the month of November. And it was such an amazing time being back inside of our building, worshiping with so many of our church family. So please join us, and if you're able to, be there in person. This morning, I want to encourage and challenge you from Hebrews 9. And if you've read through the book of Hebrews before, you understand it's quite theologically dense. And so specifically, Hebrews 9, the writer of Hebrews, who we don't know who it is, opens the chapter up, and he's detailing the worship practices of the Old Testament. And if you're familiar, you know that much of the Old Testament is dedicated to the practices and routines and rules and regulations of the Old Covenant. And in verse 5 of Hebrews 9, the writer actually states, we won't have time, or we won't go into details now to discuss these things, because he knows that they would take, chapters and books. But later on in verse 14 of chapter 9, which is really where I want to hone in on today, the writer writes, how much more then will the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself unblemished to God, cleanse our consciences from acts that lead to death, so that we may serve the living God? Verse 15, for this reason Christ is the mediator of a new covenant, that those who are called may receive the promised eternal inheritance, now that he has died as a ransom to set them free from the sins committed under the first covenant. I want to go back up to that last phrase of verse 14. Cleanse our consciences from acts that lead to death, so that we may serve the living God. Earlier manuscripts changed that phrase from acts that lead to death to cleanse our consciences from useless rituals. It's simply a difference in translation that the phrase from acts that lead to death is changed to from useless rituals. Death is equated with these useless rituals. And oppositely, in verse 15, life, serving the living God, life is equated with Jesus Christ's sacrifice and ransom for us on the cross. So my challenge to you today is, despite our acceptance that Christ is enough for us, despite the life we found in that, I know I'm drawn, and I'm sure many of you are drawn, to continually get fixated on useless rituals that I associate with my faith that are not bringing life. In fact, those useless rituals are bringing death. I'm sure many of you aren't struggling with the rules and regulations found in the Old Covenant specifically, but there are things that you associate with your faith that are not focused and are not a part of the life that is found in Jesus' sacrifice and ransom for us on the cross. So my encouragement to you today is that those useless rituals are completely worthless. And my challenge to you today is to take those rituals, find them, determine what they are, and remove them from your spiritual life. The life that we have is found only in the ransom of Jesus' blood being shed on the cross for each and every one of us. That is it. That is the beautiful news of the gospel. And so that's my challenge to you today and my encouragement, church. So excited to be back with you this coming Sunday. Please join us in person if you're able to. And until then, have a great rest of your week.